Okay, so good morning once again, and welcome to this particular webinar. It is part of P4PETalks bi-monthly program that helps executives to address business growth concerns. It also helps them to address concerns around organizational developments and, of course, how they can continue to build the organization and transform the HR space as the case may be. In this particular session, we are going to spend some time discussing how to build an executive team, and also at the same time, while building this team, how we can successfully deploy corporate culture and improve the culture of the organization. My name is Joel Omike. I will be taking this particular session. I work with P4PE Institute. P4PE is a household brand amongst the HR community, and it helps organizations to be able to achieve results with respect to business growth, organizational development, and HR transformation. We are passionate about professional excellence, and we pride ourselves as being Africa's mid-sized business community growth advisor. In the past 12 years of our experience engaging executives, we've been able to build institutions across various industries with expertise in aviation, financial services, manufacturing, public sector, advisory institutions, as the case may be. Majorly, we deal with advisory, analytics, training, outsourcing, and research. A few organizations have found us in good company, as the case may be. I've had an interesting career in the past 21 years or thereabouts, engaging executives and helping them to chart the course of their organization. I will be sharing my experiences in this particular area in the course of this particular conversation and our discourse today. I invite you, if you have questions, to please chat them in the chat box and share your thoughts and experiences as we also discuss down the line. It would be good also if at the end of the program you are able to share some thoughts and experiences in this area. You can always reach the organization based on the contact details you find on the screen here. So you can reach out to us whenever it is you need some additional information or need to engage with P4P Institute. So let's get into our conversation today. At the end of this particular webinar, you are going to have some critical takeaway from it. One, there will be clarity on strategic organization and cultural developments. We'll also look at the best way in order to drive leadership growth and leadership development, and what is the place of coaching within the organization and team building. In terms of the agenda of this particular webinar, we shall be looking at the cultural ripples and how culture ripples out from the executive team. That is, that culture drives from or derives from what executives are. I will pay attention to some of the common failure factors that create problems for organizations. And then we'll look at how you can configure and set up a retreat that will help you to address some of those problems that we have discussed earlier. And then a few payoffs when it comes to executive retreats. Without wasting much time, let's get into the conversation very clearly. One of the major concerns of executives today is what was discussed in a particular article by Harvard Business Review by Michael Baer and Nathan Noher. In that particular work, they say that most of the initiatives of executives, from the research they carried out, most of the initiatives that executives do, things like installing new technology, perhaps they are trying to augment what exists already in the organization, and they are trying to put some things in place within that particular organization. So sometimes it involves installing new technology, all right? But in those particular cases, it could lead to issues. Or maybe it is downsizing, all right? Downsizing. And in that particular case, they also have concerns in it. Or it is restructuring of the organization, all right? Maybe they are changing the focus of the organization, changing the various structures within the organization, or they are just trying to change the corporate culture of the organization. Most initiatives had low success rates. This was the discovery of these particular professors, as the case may be. In that particular work on cracking the code of change, they discovered the brutal fact that only 70% or about 70% of all change initiatives fail. 70% of all change initiatives tend to fail. This is very sad. If you think about it, it then means that executives go through a lot of pain in order to be able to achieve the results that they are trying to bring to the table within the organization that they represent at that point in time. Now, it depends on how you look at it seriously. What does 70% change initiative failure mean? What would that mean to you? What is the implication of that to you at that point in time? Now, the agony or the excitement of this particular report depends on the viewpoint you take to this particular conversation. Let's look at two possible viewpoints. One of the viewpoints says that a half or 1/3 of change and improvement efforts are failing. Right? A half or 1/3 of the change initiative efforts appear to be failing in various places within the organization, as the case may be. So if this is true, that a major part is failing, that means the perception is that there is failure. This is like the analogy of the glass, that the glass is half full or half empty. So if you look at it from the standpoint that half to 2/3 of organizational change efforts are failing, then you're looking at it as half empty. But there's a flip side to it also, in which case you could say that 1/3 to half of the change initiatives and improvement efforts are having a major impact on the organizational success. Irrespective of how you look at it, the obvious truth is clear, that there is a wide gap between what could be and what is successful. Whether you look at it as half empty or half full, from both numbers, you will notice that very clearly about 50% are not resulting in good produce, are not having impact within the organization. As an executive, think about it. Your investment in ensuring the success of your organization, more than half of it fails. It is difficult to justify such investment if you continue to pour in funds and resources that are scarce into those engagements and you're not getting value for it at that point in time. This again brings to mind the fact that there is a reason, there must be a reason why we're having this major failure when it comes to organizational improvement and organizational performance. According to that research, when x-rayed further, they discovered that there is an X factor. There's an X factor that is leading to this particular failure. That is a major cause of this particular failure. So of all the options that are available at that point in time, there's always something at that point in time that is the cause of major failure. And this has been traced to leadership. So leadership and organizational culture are the X factors that leads to success or failure of an organization at a point in time. So an organization could be successful or could fail depending on the leadership acumen within the organization and the kind of culture that is installed in that particular organization. Sometimes we say that leadership are soft skills. But you see, this soft leadership and culture can boost or block the organizational improvement efforts. So your leadership style, your leadership personality, your leadership prowess within the organization can hinder or enable those transformations. The kind of culture that is in the organization also has a high impact on the success of the organization's transformation effort at that point in time. If this is the case, that we can trace this to leadership and also to culture, how then is culture boosted or blocked within the organization? Here are some of the things that can enable culture to be boosted or blocked within the organization. So there is the execute organizational changes. Sometimes the changes that we want to put in place within the organization is not executed in the same fire, in the same excitement, in the same sense of urgency that it needs to be done. So the way you execute organizational changes can help your culture or hinder that particular culture at that point in time. It can also enhance the productivity and the efficiency within the organization. It can boost the health and safety of the organization. Will the organization survive? Will the organization thrive? Will the organization grow down the line at that point in time? These are some concerns that we need to see in our progress within this particular process. It can also lift morale and engagement levels within the organization. Employees within the organization will feel excited that yes, the organization, they are doing things that excites them and gets value for them at that point in time. All right, it helps them to be able to see, feel engaged, feel a part of the organization because the culture is being boosted. Or flip side, when the culture is such that it is being blocked, employees' morale will fall low. And when employees' morale fall low, implementations, executions, organizational growth will not happen at that point in time. It can strengthen teamwork. It can strengthen also team building within the organization. So there's team cohesion, there's team bonding if we're able to make this work within the organization. It can also reduce turnover within the organization, all right? Or it can increase turnover in the organization, depending on the leadership style at that point in time. The style of leadership also and the culture installed in the organization can in some way also impact on absenteeism. Employees will come up with excuses for not being at work because of the way they are being treated in the work environment. It can also increase the quality of the outcome of what we do within the organization. And then when we are able to implement process improvement within the organization to a large extent, it affects it in this particular area. But think about it then. Really, what is the root cause? What is the root causes of these particular cultural concerns and issues we've mentioned here? Like Ignal's root system, the common causes of failure are intertwined with personal, right? Yes, they are intertwined with personal. You notice that the personality of team members matters a lot. It is intertwined with the kind of team that you have in place. And then it is also intertwined with the organizational behaviors and then the conditions in question for which people are working in. So the personality of your leadership affects the success of the organization. The team you have put in place, how they work together amongst themselves, whether they have constant conflict amongst themselves, also affects the progress of the organization at that point in time. A team that regularly has conflicts cannot produce sufficient results. All right? And this is why some executives have zero tolerance for such kind of conflict within their space. Also, the organizational behavior, and that is by behavior here, we mean how the organization responds to information, to issues, to concerns that are brought before them at that point in time. And then the conditions, the work environment, the external environment that we operate in, all these joined together affects the performance of the institution. But in reality, have you noticed that all these things we mentioned at the top, it is the executive team that models the behavior that sets the tone and the example for the entire organization to progress at that point in time. So what the executive teams condone will become what is acceptable in that particular organization. What the executive team portends, the way they act, the way they behave, may guide the rest of the organization to accept that particular behavior as the way to go at that point in time. What is the summary of what we're saying? What we're saying here is that an organization's culture ripples out from the executive team that is leading it. So if you look at an organization, the way the organization behaves, the way the organization acts, how they do their things, check the executives in the organization. No doubt you will not be far from the truth. That behavior is in alignment with the behavior of the executive team. And so sometimes when executives are concerned about certain behaviors that are emanating from the organization, they might check how their various executives in the organization is acting. The senior management team, the leadership team, the general managers, the executive directors in the organization, their behaviors sum up in order to drive the corporate behavior at that point in time within the organization. Interestingly, Mahatma Gandhi some time ago says that we must be the change we wish to see in this world. So executives that want certain things to change in the organization, it will need to start from them. What we get is in reality what we are. Like I say in recruitment regularly, when I talk to executives who are trying to recruit, most times when you interview candidates, when you hire, you end up hiring people who look like you, who behave like you, who act like you at that point in time. And there's little difference between those individuals and yourself, the people you hire within the organization. If I can borrow a leaf from the former US president, all right, he said that change begins with you. So when you want to make certain corporate changes in the organization, one of the things you need to do is look in the mirror. And by looking in the mirror, whoever is staring at you in that particular mirror, that is the person that will start the change. Sometimes we say a lot of things about our employees, our colleagues, that they are this, they are that, as the case may be. But in reality, it is just a reflection of what we have allowed, what we have condoned. So if we want some of those things to change within the organization, we need to take positive action. And the actions we take will determine the kind of success we're going to get at that point in time in the organization. So the change we need to see actually is in our doorstep. We need to drive that particular change ourselves first before we're able to address those particular results in the organization. Now think about it really. So when you want to make a change in the organization, there are certain things that you must focus on first. And those particular things that you focus on are the drivers of your corporate results and the things that you use to deliver and produce results within the organization. Now, what are the characteristics of a successful team? What makes a team very successful? So when we say a team is successful, what exactly makes that particular team successful? All right, when we say a team is producing the kind of results we expect it to produce, what are the drivers of success? One is that within the team there is trust and respect. Each team member respects his fellow colleagues. First, you respect the other person as an individual, as a human being, as someone that has a constitutional right to be alive, to enjoy life, to be happy, so to speak, and to be treated with respect also. That is why it is said that respect is reciprocal. For you to have success with the people you work with, you must respect them, they must respect you also. You must trust that they will do a good job, and they must trust that you can manage them well at that point. The second characteristics of a successful team is direction and change. There is clarity of where the organization is going to. There is a strategy in place, what we are supposed to do, step 1, step 2, step 3, in being able to achieve those particular areas. The organization has the ability to change. Leadership at any point in time can introduce a change to what is going on, and they are not overly questioned by their colleagues because they have set the direction of the organization at that point in time. So our ability to change and not keeping insisting that, oh, why are things changing regularly? Can't it be the way it was? Will help the organization to progress as much as possible. The third part in change and direction is innovation. That is, we cannot continue to do things the way we have always done it and expect a good result or a different result at that point in time. Absolutely, ethics and integrity. What kind of personality are you? Can people look at you and say you're a person of integrity, you're honest, you do the right thing always, irrespective of whose ox is God at that point in time? You see things that are not going very well and you flag it immediately at that point in time. All right, so that's an issue of ethics and integrity. Interestingly, this particular area of ethics and integrity, it's so important to the leadership team. Then there is results. Successful teams are always result driven. They get results. Each team member is accountable for the result he's supposed to produce on his desk and also the results that other individuals are supposed to produce. So each team member, when he or she notices that the other person is not producing sufficient results or is not pulling his weight, calls the person's attention to the fact that, hey, team member, you're dragging us back. So they have high level of efficiency and high level of productivity. They self-manage themselves. Performance management is tops within that particular team. Periodically, they sit down and check, how far have we gone? How far should we have gone? What should we do to bridge the gap at that point in time? Then decisions are made very quickly, and those decisions are based on principles. They are guided by principles and not by emotions. Finally, people. Successful teams communicate easily amongst themselves. Team members speak to themselves very well. They recognize and reward themselves. Not necessarily the organizational reward and recognition. Not waiting until the organization says, this is the long service award, this is the high performing individual. Team members on their own do small things in order to recognize their team members. Little gratis, little favors here and there. Oh, thank you for helping me out in this particular area. Oh, take this, I got this for you because I liked what you did for me yesterday. Those small rewards and recognition encourages the team members to want to work with the other individuals so that they can continue to make progress. Then everybody is involved. Team members are involved. There is no person feeling aloof, feeling that he does not understand what is going on, or feeling that he's not a part of the team at that point in time. They collaborate, they cooperate, and they work together. Okay? And they continue to grow and develop themselves periodically as much as possible as they commit to the final success of the organization. Now, are we just talking about these things or are they realities? In fact, there are several statistics that demonstrates that team effectiveness and employee engagement, or team effectiveness and employee commitment, are linked together, as you can see in this particular area. Have you noticed that where team effectiveness is high, all right, there are more results at that point in time? You see that the higher the team engagement, the higher the team commitment, the higher the effectiveness that we get. So when employees are engaged, productivity is high, effectiveness is higher within that particular organization at that point in time. Also, team effectiveness is linked to turnover. That is, employees resigning and leaving the organization, as the case may be. Can you see that team effectiveness score, right? Percentage turnover that you have in organization. Once team effectiveness is low, turnover is high. Can you notice? And once team effectiveness, on the other hand, all right, is high, turnover is low at that point in time. So voluntary turnover by employees generally indicates that they are either not so engaged or connected with the organization as they would have wanted to be connected at that point in time, and this affects team effectiveness at that point in time. Team effectiveness is also linked to profitability of the organization. The corporate organization can be said to be profiting from the effectiveness within the team. And if you look at this particular graph again here, as the team effectiveness score is high, once we have team effectiveness that is high, instantly it leads to a higher productivity and profit within the organization at that point in time. So there is high result, high returns at that point in time. for the as the case may be. All right, and these are indications to help us understand that this is no lip service. We are not paying lip service to this particular conversation, and it's helping us to understand some of the things that are affecting progress within the organization. Now, what are some of the common failures? What are some of the common failure factors? The things that cause failure within the organization, as the case may be, that makes it difficult for organizations to produce results, for executives to achieve results. So I'm going to share with you some of the common failure factors, and they are not in any particular order, so I've not ranked them in any order. And as we discuss this, think about your own organization. Which of these failure factors affect your organization? What are some of the things mentioned here? Is pulling your organization back, is preventing your organization from achieving the success that it should achieve. The first one here that affects organization is speed traps and the tyranny of the urgent. What's a speed trap? Here we are referring to the organization always being in a hurry, wanting to achieve everything at the same time, and everything for them in the organization is urgent. Each time they want to do anything, they want it now. When executives talk to their subordinates, once they bring projects assignment, please, Joel, can I get this now? Can I get it by tomorrow morning? So there's always urgency and speed for everything that we want to do in the organization at that point in time. And this is a trap. All right? This is a trap. All right? In fact, there's a sign that I once saw on a particular road that is winding in a particular area. And the sign on the road says, slow down now or die, as the case may be. All right? So if you don't slow down, the executives can trip on something, and that will affect the organization's performance at the end of the day. What are some of these speed traps that we are talking about? Over-accelerated firms fare worse than their peers on performance, efficiency, employee productivity, and retention, among other measures that have been researched in a 600 companies research that has been conducted in the past 9 years. The problem is usually very pervasive, especially in our environment where we have 24/7 accessibility to everything and cost-cutting measures. In the past, once you shut down and go home, that's the end of it. But in today's world, we have laptops, we have mobile devices. That means you are always on, so you really never shut down, as the case may be. Half of 92 organizations that were investigated, okay, were affected by the trap in one way or another. And most of them are even unaware that they are in the trap of this acceleration. All right? Sometimes organizations are in a hurry, overly in a hurry, that they make serious, grievous mistakes that they don't have control over at that point in time within the organization. What is a sign that shows an organization is in this speed trap? What are some of the signs that indicate that an organization might be caught in this particular web? I need you to look out for these signs in your own organization and see whether your organization has some of these traps, signs of this trap within the organization. There are 3 signs. 1 is overloading, 2 is multi-loading, and 3 is perpetual loading of the team. All right? Let's look at these 3 signs of over-acceleration, as the case may be. Overloading. There are too many activities going on at the same time, and people don't have the time or the resources to complete their job very well. The activities are just too plenty. They are here, they are there, they are there, and they are getting involved in a lot of things at the same time. All right? And at that point in time, they don't have access to sufficient resources to be able to achieve their activities. There's insufficient budget, there's insufficient time, there's insufficient internal resources in the organization. So people feel overwhelmed. And so the quality of output, the completion rate is limited at that point. The second one, multi-loading. People are asked to do too many kinds of activities, different activities at the same time. The person is involved in this, is involved in that, is involved in the other area. The organization sometimes is unfocused and activities are misaligned. They are not working hand in hand to themselves. This is what we normally call in the corporate environment multitasking. And even employees, when they are looking for jobs, they put it in their resume and they tell the organization, look, I can multitask, I can do several things at once. But we all know that multitasking is a fallacy. It doesn't work. It's just a waste of corporate executives' time. We use it as a way to waste executive resources, as the case may be. The third one is perpetual loading. What does it mean? Perpetual loading is this month we are overloaded. Next month we are overloaded. The next month coming on we are overloaded. Throughout the entire year, we are constantly, perpetually overloaded, as the case may be. And so there is no hope that there is going to be a time when you can take a retreat to recharge, go on leave and rest, and come back feeling stronger and rejuvenated to do a great job. You feel imprisoned in the deliberate frenzy of running around and doing things. When an employee says that, I want to go on leave, but I can't go on leave, too many things to be done, it is not true. It's usually because that organization is over-accelerating. They are doing more than they should do at that point in time. And that is why some executives are not able to unplug and also take care of certain resources. Sometimes it is not driven by the sheer pleasure of profitability or growth, as the case may be. In all honesty, some organizations attempt to overload themselves and over-accelerate because of certain resources or certain things that they need to do, that they need to catch up with at that point in time. Usually that has happened over time and has brought them to that particular point in time. And this is why sometimes you need transformation to be able to achieve that kind of result you want and get your organization out of that particular quagmire. Let's look at the next common failure that causes failure in organization. The second one, outside the speed trap and tyranny of the urgent, is partial and piecemeal programs. Partial and piecemeal programs. In this particular case, organizations start things and they don't finish it. They do things in small bits. They are not thorough with it, as the case may be at that point in time. So they do engagement programs, operational excellence, leadership development, they do Lean Six Sigma, they come up with a new performance management system, they put on a succession planning program, they do safety and healthcare program, there's talent management, process management, technology, training. There are too many initiatives going on at the same time, and none is concluded very well within the organization. Most times this happens because there are different executives who have been given the responsibility to champion some of these particular things. And so the person who is doing performance management is doing his own. The person who is doing succession planning is doing his own. The guy who is doing talent management is on his own. The person who is installing a new technology in the organization. So there is no sync, no alignment. And sometimes the organization do not have the complete resource to fund all of them. And so what they do half and half, piecemeal, partial improvement in various areas within the organization, and they end up getting insufficient results. Usually when the organizations do this, sometimes some executives pride themselves and they say, well, 1% improvement everywhere is better than 100% improvement in just a few areas, as the case may be. There is wisdom in everything that is said, right? However, which of the wisdom actually leads to organizational stability and growth? That's what we should consider at that point in time as an organization. Another failure factor that we'll look at again, the third one, is leadership lip service. Some leaders pretend to be supporting initiatives that are going on in the organization, but their attention is not there. They are not in full support of what is going on in the organization at that point in time. Trust me, such executives end up not making sufficient progress in the areas they want to make progress at because of the lip service that they are paying attention to. I'm going to show you a culture change continuum, a culture change commitment by executives, and the extent to which these executives look at it. There is actually 5 stages that executives can use in order to demonstrate their support of the team at that point in time, and this will affect whether they're able to make progress or not at that point in time. So let's look at it this particular way. And so they see you loud and clear in the organization. Some executives are permission-driven executives, all right? They give you permission to start the initiative. Yeah, okay, is that what you want to do? Go ahead. You have my support. So they say it only with their mouths. But in reality, they do not act it at that point in time. So you get permission to do something, but they are not in support of you. Sometimes, in some cases, they may end up leaving you hanging out and dry at that point in time. Or they give lip service, as the case may be. They provide lip service. They have given you permission. Then once in a while, they can say something. Okay, yes, in this particular area, we are supporting them. Yes, we're interested in. So that's lip service. Or there's passionate lip service. Everywhere they go, they talk about it. So they are always talking about that initiative in the organization. But it has some failures. This particular passionate leadership has some failure. They are showing lip service, but they are not involved at that point in time. Because they are not involved at that point in time, it becomes obvious that the executives are not able to drive sufficient change in the organization. They are not involved. They don't demonstrate that, yes, this is what they are interested in. This is what they are driving at that point in time. So the leadership is not involved. But you see, the gap between passionate lip service and involved leadership can be blah, 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 blah. When the executives just talk, too much talk, no support, no action. Compared to when there is a follow-through, the executives actually follow through to ensure that what they are saying, they are involved in it. This is where you now have them having an integrated change initiative, and they're able to drive the process within the organization, and you get beautiful results in the organization. That's how you can get the kind of results that you expect to have in the corporate organization at that point in time. Now let's look at the fourth common failure factors that demonstrates failure in executive change management and initiatives. The next one is low culture development or low capacity development. You notice that the organization is not given to developing the team or developing the culture in the organization as much as possible. Training is not widespread. They don't train and develop their employees to grow in order to do very well. The culture of the organization, they don't pay attention to the culture of the organization. If we say our culture is execution, we always do things that we say. They don't pay attention to see through that ensure things are being done at that point in time. Or we say our culture is that we are an environment where we trust ourselves, we take care of ourselves very well. What is the executives doing to ensure that that kind of culture works at that point in time? I'd like to share with you an analogy, all right? Strong leaders care for the context in which they are doing. I like using analogies for what I do. The queen bee, you know the queen bee? Yes, the queen bees, they don't make decisions and they don't run operations. The queen bee in the beehive, right? Their primary role is to exude a chemical substance that ensures that the entire system of the beehive continues to work together as one. This particular role of the queen bee, right, in ensuring that this substance is secreted, it is called the spirit of the beehive. The spirit of the beehive at that point in time, to ensure that the organization continues to grow and make progress at that point in time. Executives should ask themselves, Are we strong in ensuring and caring for the context of our organization? The context could be the environment we are in, the team members we are working with, their concerns at that point in time, ensuring that they work together, the products and services we are deploying to the market at that point in time, to ensure that it produces the kind of results we expect it to produce at that point in time for the organization. So it is important to see it through, that the executive must see his role in that organization as being that of ensuring that we produce the kind of system that we intend to produce to drive the organizational success forward, so that we can achieve the success that we have chosen at that point in time. This calls to mind the leadership compass. And in this particular leadership compass, it helps you to see things from various perspectives. So you can see clearly the things that drive the leadership within the organization and how these drivers can help us to sustain the organization at that point in time. So what is the focus and the context? The focus and the context is the responsibility of leadership. The focus and context of leadership is learning and development. You must ensure that the organization grows, the organization learns, they build the capacity and capability of the organization. There is a difference between capacity and capability. Capability refers to what you know, what you can do, as the case may be. All right? Capacity refers to the size of what you can do at that point in time. It is also the responsibility of leaders within the organization, partners, to join the business. So whenever we say we don't have sufficient customers in the business, it is the responsibility of leadership. It is leadership that is supposed to ensure that we have sufficient customers in the organization. Either they do it directly themselves, or they engage the other team members in the organization to ensure that they produce the kind of results in that particular area. They are also responsible for strategy and direction in the organization. They define which way we should go in the organization. They define the direction of the organization and how we are going to go in that particular area within the organization. This brings to mind measures and rewards. Once you have set the strategy and the direction of the organization, you must continue to measure the progress towards that particular strategy and direction, and then reward those in the organization that are helping you to meet that particular direction. Then there must be continuous process improvement and also systems improvement within the organization. Now, when you talk about measures, rewards, processes, and systems, it is not the role of leadership. Measures, rewards, processes, and systems is the responsibility of managers within the organization to ensure that this succeeds and they're able to achieve results in those particular area within the organization. So that is what it means. There is need for leaders to develop the culture and to develop the capacity of the team members within the organization. So if we're able to do that, we'll achieve results. The fifth failure factor that denies leadership from achieving results is that teams do not pull together. There are silos within the organization. One person says, give me my own work, let me do my work. Please, I want to do my own thing. I don't want to work with that particular individual. I don't like the way he behaves. I don't like the way she behaves, as the case may be. Because the team is not pulling together, failure is common in that particular organization. And what do we mean by this, right? Sometimes there is dysfunctional behaviors that we find in executives. There are opposing views on said at meetings that cause disagreement to go underground. Sometimes we come to meetings and some people will not say a word. They disagree with what has been said, but they will not say anything at that point in time. They will go outside and act their disagreement. All right? Sometimes there's complaining, there's criticizing, there's talking about each other behind their backs, instead of coming clear to trash that particular issue. And so sometimes you notice that they say things about another person, and those particular things they say can be like stabbing that particular individual at the back. What do you think another executive will feel when he or she hears that one of the executives has been saying some things about him or her behind his back? It would have been best if you had confronted that particular individual and had a conversation with him. Sometimes there's also difficult feedback not given directly to that person. So you wanted to tell the person that his behavior is unacceptable, or you wanted to tell the individual that his attitude is not acceptable, but you do not give that feedback to that particular individual. You don't give it directly to that individual. Instead of you telling him that, look, this way, not good, better this way, that way, you now look for a third party and go and tell to that particular third party. And what do you do by doing that? You bring down the person's personality, you bring down the organization, and you bring down the brand of the organization by that kind of behavior. Healthy debates that are supposed to have been had when we have conflict, especially work-related conflict, healthy debates to trash out the issue, to improve the process, we avoid it because of disrespectful undertones and humorous potholes. What do we mean by that? Some team members, when you debate against them, when you bring up things against their own side, point of view, they become very upset and they begin to act because they are the boss. And so you cannot talk to them anyhow, so to speak. Meanwhile, you're not talking about their personality. You're just challenging the way things are being done in the office at that point in time. So we allow our attitude, our personality to be higher than best information that can help us to deal with issues in the office environment. So there's a few vocal executives, okay, and they dominate the discussion. And then there are a whole lot of us who don't say so much. And so our opinions tends not to count, either because we are not asked directly for our own views or because we are not the type that talk, as the case may be. And so things just move on with those who are more vocal in the organization at that point in time. Then there is lack of response or silence, all right, which is mistaken as agreement. So we discuss something, and then because somebody did not say anything, or the person was silent about it, we think that the person has agreed with what has been said at that point in time. And guess what? What does it mean? We then assume that there's agreement. But you see that the person is acting against what we have said so far because the person did not agree and did not voice his disagreement at that point in time. These are examples of dysfunctions in executives. This is why executives that don't speak hardly make it to the top of the organization. They are kept at a lower level within the organization because they do not challenge the status quo. Now, we are not saying that when you challenge the status quo, you should do it disrespectfully. Remember, even being disrespectful, that is point 4 here, sometimes can lead to other issues within the organization. There is need for everything to happen in a good way to ensure that things work very well within the organization. The 6th common failure, right, that affects executive development and team building is communication breakdown. Just like in family and relationships sometimes, disagreement with certain things can just lead to communication breakdown. I notice that the couples don't talk to themselves again. It also happens in the work environment also. So executive team, they are not united in their strategic direction. This is one of the most common communication breakdown because when an executive disagrees with the other executive, they stop talking to themselves. And then that affects other work-related areas in the organization. Or one executive can be sending conflicting message. By way of words, he means this thing, but by his actions, he is doing something else at that point in time. So it's difficult for him to predict that particular executive. Or behaviors that don't model the culture we want in the organization or the values we want within that particular organization. So they are behaving in this particular way, but that is not our culture. That's not our code, as the case may be. Or give little personal feedback on leadership behavior. If an individual is not doing well or acting very well, they don't confront that particular individual to show him, to help him understand that the person is missing the mark at that point in time. Those are examples of the little personal feedback that they produce at that point in time within the organization. Then there is not safe to discuss moves on the table. There's a book actually that's called Moves on the Table. Moves on the Table. And that particular book talks about certain things, topics, that once you bring it to the table, people will feel challenged. They will want to fight you back at that point in time. They think that you're trying to bring them down as the case may be. But in reality, you just want to deal with an issue at that point in time. So people are afraid of courageous conversations. If I go and tell him now, he will fight me. He will do this. So because of that fear that the person might fight the individual, the executive does not engage, does not have that courageous conversation. This leads to communication breakdown and hence failure of the corporate organization at that point in time. And then it results in the kind of gap that we are seeing. And what are we saying about this whole thing? At the end of the day, there is a gap in execution in the organization. So the last part is failing to focus and follow through. That's the last part of the failure points. They don't focus and they don't follow through. Because of the lack of focus and follow through, we are having execution gap. We say things we are going to do, but we don't follow through to do those particular things. We have lots of projects, goals, priorities. We are constantly making a list and setting action plans, but we seldom see anything through to completion before another urgent priority shows up again on top of the previous one, and so we abandon the previous one. We seem to operate by a random brain impulse, whatever that means, and we are like nervous water bugs with the ADD, attention deficiency syndrome, that frantically flit from one thing to another. We're just jumping around from various areas and we don't have depth in what we're doing. This execution gap is one of the reasons why we are not able to achieve as much results in our team as we will have done. So, with all said, how can an executive team build their team? How can they build their team? Well, there are a few steps that an executive can use to build teamwork, and this is us summarizing the best way to do this. The first rule of team building is an obvious one. To lead a team effectively, you must first establish your leadership with each team member. Each member of your team must understand why you are their leader and respect you as their leader at that point in time. The most effective team leaders build their relationship of trust and loyalty rather than fear or power of their position. So team members follow me because they trust me. They are loyal to me because they like the way I work with them. They are not afraid of me because I am head of the department. They are not afraid of me because I am ED. They are not afraid of me because I am GM. Rather, they put in honest effort to do their job. And when they are struggling, they come to me to ask me, how do you think I should do this? So some of the steps, I won't go through the entire 15 steps, but I'll mention some of them. Some of the steps says, consider each employee's ideas as valuable. Remember that there is no such thing as a stupid idea. Whenever an employee suggests something, as a leader, recognize that particular idea. Even if you don't work with that particular idea, learn to say, thank you very much for that idea. I'll consider it when I make my decision. Be aware of employees' unspoken feelings. It is not everybody that is outspoken about their feelings. So you must watch body language. You must understand your team members. Set an example to your team members by being open with your employees and sensitive to their moods and their feelings from time to time. Act as a harmonizing influence to your team members. Look for chances to mediate and resolve minor disputes. So if you see two team members having issues and concerns, learn how to address that particular issue. Point continually towards the team's higher goals, why we are here, what we are pursuing, to help them understand that their personality difference should not be allowed to stop the organization from achieving its ultimate goals at that point in time within the organization. Be clear when you are communicating. Be clear with your directives. Whenever you have an engagement with your employees and they walk away to do what you've said, they must not be in doubt of what you have said, how they should deal with it, how they should handle what you have said at that point in time. If they are in doubt, it's an obvious indication that at that point in time, you are not leading them effectively. Number 5, encourage trust and cooperation among all your team members. Encourage them to trust themselves. Encourage them to cooperate among themselves. All right? Remember that the relationship team members establish among themselves are in every bit as important as those that they establish with them. As the team begins to take shape, pay close attention to the ways in which team members work together and take steps to improve communication, improve cooperation, improve trust, and improve respect in those particular team that you find yourself, right? Encourage your team members to share information. Emphasize the needs and the importance of each team member contribution and demonstrate how all of their job operates together and move the entire organization closer to their goals. And then number 7, delegate problem-solving tasks to the team members. Let the team work on creative solutions together. Let them work together in those areas. Then facilitate communication in the team. Remember that the communication is the single most important factor in successful teamwork. So facilitate communication does not mean holding meetings all the time. Instead, it can mean you setting an example by remaining open to suggestions, open to concerns, by asking questions and offering help, and by doing everything you can to avoid confusion in your own communication. Then number 9, establish team values, goals, and then evaluate performance periodically. Be sure to talk with team members about the progress they are making toward the goals that has been established at that point in time. All right? And then address teamwork in performance standards. All right? Discuss with your team members, what do we really care about when we are performing? What does the word success mean to the team? What actions can we take to live up to our stated values? Then number 10, make sure that you have a clear idea of what you need to accomplish. That particular clarity helps the team members know what is of priority, what is important to the organization, so that they can work hand in hand in that particular area. So they understand the standards that have been set for the organization, and they are willing to work hand in hand with the organization in order to achieve that particular standard at that point in time. Use consensus, set objectives, right? Solve problems, plan for action. So get people to agree together, to work together. Set ground rules for the team. It is so important. So there are norms that you and your team members establish for us to be successful, like attendance issue, like the way we speak to ourselves. Team members are to be punctual to meetings. Or general guidelines, every member has the right to offer ideas and suggestions without being shouted at in meetings. Then you should make sure that every team member creates these ground rules by consensus and they commit to it, both as a group and then as an individual. Then establish methods of how we arrive at a consensus, encourage listening and brainstorming, all right, and establish the parameters for this consensus for us to achieve these various consensus. If we do this, you most probably have an effective team within your organization. Finally, how do you understand your culture and build your culture from a standpoint of the organization? There are 4 factors. 4 factors that shape your organization. 4 factors that shape the culture of your organization that helps you to make progress at that point in time in your organizational culture. And these factors, in reality, are all the things that you need to ensure that you achieve the kind of success and progress you need. One is the degree of urgency. You may be in a line of business because of the industry you work in. That particular industry pushes you. That industry is a fast-paced industry, so everybody must be working in a hurry. Or the executives in that organization are very fast-moving people. Okay, so there's a high level of urgency in that particular organization. So depending on the industry, the environment, the executives, there could be a high level of degree of urgency in that environment. There's also people orientation or task orientation. Your culture may be oriented towards people. People are more important to us than the task, or the goals that we are trying to achieve is more important than the people at that point in time. That will shape the culture of the organization. And then the functional orientation. What kind of organization do we have? Our organization function. In that case, the behavior of the organization will be like manufacturing. Is the organization focused on marketing and selling? In that case, customer service and engagement will be the way we are working at that point in time. So the functional orientation of the organization determines the kind of culture that you find in that particular organization. Then, of course, there are other smaller cultures within the organization that can affect how you progress and produce things within the organization. So, wrapping up what we've had in our conversation so far, right? If we come back and review the things we have said in our conversation and what executives should do in order to build their team to achieve the results in this particular area, it will help us to see that very clearly executives have a long way to go, all right, in being able to achieve this particular process that we have said. So in summary of our conversation so far, we say that strategic organization and culture development is what executives are responsible for. The leadership and organizational development are things that the executives must pay attention to in order to achieve results. We must learn how to coach, how to grow the team and lead the team successfully, and then run team building sessions and engagements to ensure that we produce the results that we expect the team to have and then achieve success in those particular areas. So thank you very much for this opportunity to have discussed with you. If you have any questions or comments, you can post in the chat box. All right? I'll wait for a minute or thereabout, and then we'll wrap up. While I expect your questions and comments to come in, I'd just like to take this opportunity to remind you of some of our executive programs. We have leadership development programs that help executives to build their leadership team. We have the Emerging Leaders program, we have the Emerging Women Leadership program, we have the Leadership Essential programs. There's also the High Impact Leadership program, and then Leadership Introductions. These particular programs help you to build your leadership team. There's also team building retreats and team building programs, where you can take your team away from the work environment so that they can learn how to unwind, relax, rejuvenate, re-strategize again, and become strong. Increase the bond in that particular team and make them want to work together again as they recharge and come back to work environments. To that also, we have the strategic planning retreats, where the senior members of the team can take some time off from the business and look into the future and formulate a new strategy for the organization, design and develop a strategic direction that will help them to achieve success within that particular organization, and come up with long-term, short-term objectives and goals and action plans, and how they intend to measure performance as they make progress within the organization. And then finally, our various organizational development initiatives, including our training programs, our HR transformation programs, and other programs that we do in this particular area, can help executives to make advancement in those areas. So these are things that you can take advantage of so that you can achieve success in this particular area. Thank you very much for your time to have listened to us and who have paid attention to this particular webinar. We trust that the information has been shared is useful to you, and you'll be able to use it to continue to grow your organization, grow your practice, and also help your organization to do great work. This recording, as usual, is available to those who are registered for the program, and to others also who would like to participate in this particular program through our ProVarsity platform. It will be uploaded there, both this presentation and the recording, and then you have access to it also. For those who are also interested in having a certificate on this particular program, you can download that particular certificate from the ProVarsity platform once you get to the end of this particular session. Thank you very much for your time.